Finally, long-awaited debut. What's up? What's going on?
Not much. What's happening, Rockwell?
Not much, Ninja Pete. We are finally here.
Yes.
Why don't you start us off?
All right. Well, we got a lot of things we want to cover here today. There's been a lot of news this week. We'll try to go through that really quick before we get to our main topic.
Okay. First of all, what did you think of Raw?
I thought Raw was pretty good.
Yeah.
I think that they're using a lot of the right talents right now. I think that they did a great job with AJ and Sammy. I think that the Bray face turn had potential. We'll get to that. Obviously, the news that he got injured over in Italy has broken, and I'm not sure if they've said how long he's going to be out for.
Right.
That definitely throws a wrench into whatever plans I'm sure that they had.
Right.
But I am curious to kind of see what that's going to do for his character. I think it's a direction that he maybe has to have taken a long time ago. If he's going to be kind of like the new Undertaker, the guy who's a main event player but always kind of has these side feuds, it works better when he's a face as opposed to a heel.
Big injury. He was, looking like they were going to start some good stuff, even though it's the League of Nations. Who really cares about them, right?
Not many people.
I think he was off to a good start. That's a major blow. Add it to the list.
Yeah, it's as if nobody else is ever going to get back in time. It's just knock another person down. So, what do you think it is exactly that's causing all of these guys to get hit with the injury bug at this point in time?
It's hard to say. I think there's, a lot of theories out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the one that keeps coming back to is it's got to be the workload. These guys are busting their ass, and they're putting on 5 matches a week, and it's not your 80s wrestling. These guys are high flying. They're really putting their bodies at risk. So, I think it's the workload and the type of, work that they're putting in to entertain us. And, it's rough. Going into WrestleMania, the roster was just depleted. It's nice we're finally getting these call-ups, but is it a little too late? You have all these tag teams now, and we didn't get a tag team title match at WrestleMania. We got it was supposed to be a 4-on-3 match. It ended up being a 3-on-3 match, and it wasn't even for the titles. And at first, it was for the titles. So, I don't know. Something's got to change. If it's a brand split, if it's work-only live TV, if it's a shame. It's a shame.
Yeah, no, if you look back, WCW in the 90s really didn't do a lot of house shows. They focused primarily on television. And I think because of that, you do notice that a lot of their main guys were consistently on the show. There weren't a lot of major injuries to the big names.
Right.
Hogan wasn't going down. Savage wasn't going down. Flair wasn't going down. In this day and age, Cena's been down. Rollins has been down. Bray Wyatt's down. And the good thing is that Cena and Rollins should be back by the summer.
If WrestleMania was any indication, Cena should have been back last week. He looks pretty good.
The question is, I guess now, one way to look at it is if the roster is stronger, does the Roman Reigns backlash maybe get affected in any way? If there's more things to look forward to on the show, is the fact that he's the centerpiece of it as drastic to the fans? Do they react so negatively, or do they at least think, I might not like this, but there's a lot that I'm happy about overall with the rest of the product? There are other guys that I like, and maybe they go a little easier on him?
You and I both know that, we've seen it. It's been, the last 12 or 15 years, you have the guys that hate Cena and love Cena, and it's just going to be the same thing. And, I have certain feelings about Roman Reigns, but it's not about him overall. It's about the way that they were booking him.
Mhm.
But I think he's a good talent. I think that he was given the wrong gimmick. But I like what he's doing right now. And if he can keep up that momentum, I mean, I'm happy. It's just sad to see that, AJ Styles is kind of going to get fed to him. But it's
Right.
good, also good to see him in the main event.
Yeah.
Who would have thought 10 years ago, 5 years ago, a year ago, that we were going to see AJ Styles and Roman Reigns in a main event at a WWE program?
No, yeah, and I mean, I think one thing I'm really excited about, one way or another, when Cena comes back, is we're going to get a Cena versus Styles feud,
Oh, that's going to be awesome.
and I think
That,
the work rate there is going to be incredible. Cena's
I'll do you one better. Rollins and Styles. That's
no,
going to be awesome.
no, absolutely. There's a lot of potential there, and I think it's a great way to catapult Roman into legitimately being a full-fledged heel, is if he destroys the internet darling.
And you know what? It's being built right now, and people are talking about it. Roman Reigns versus AJ Styles is Vince McMahon versus the internet, and it's really what it is.
No,
He is the internet darling, and well deserved. I mean, he is phenomenal, no pun intended. And people love him. And unfortunately, Roman Reigns is the chosen one, and he is feeling the wrath for it.
right.
No fault of his own, you know. He's just feeling the wrath of it.
Why is there so much backlash towards these supposed chosen ones lately? I mean, whether we like it or not, maybe the biggest chosen one of all time is Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan turned off to be the biggest payoff in the history of the business. So why is it that we get some backlash towards the John Cena's at first and the Roman Reigns today when it comes to Vince or the WWE getting behind one guy to be their main player?
Social media, the instant gratification. I mean, you have all these other guys that back in the day you didn't know anything else other than WWF. You didn't know anybody but Hogan, Savage. I mean, you had your independent territories, but these Ring of Honors, New Japans, they're putting out amazing wrestling matches and putting out amazing talent, and we're seeing it. Connections. We have the internet. We have everything at our disposal that we are watching what's going on. And it's funny because if you think about it, when the whole Shield thing was going down, everybody loved Roman Reigns. Everybody. Nobody liked Seth Rollins. People liked Dean Ambrose, but Roman Reigns was the favorite. And then you give him, I think the biggest thing that happened to him was that injury where herniated disc.
Hernia. Yeah.
It was a hernia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was out, and he did a couple of via satellite promos, and rest in peace, Roman Reigns' career. I mean, but it's funny because Royal Rumble, Philadelphia, you were at, and he was booed out of the arena.
Oh, yeah.
Raw, Philadelphia, I was at when he won the title, and the guy, it was thank you Roman Reigns chants. So I think personally, and I know when I've booed Roman Reigns, it's not the worker, it's not Roman Reigns himself, it's what is given to his character. And that's the only way we could tell the writers, we don't want that.
Right. And no, I think there's validity to that. I think that one of the things that's so complicated now with the WWE is that I was reading somewhere that they did, and I think I was telling you about this a little bit. They've done some surveys, they've done some, ways of kind of like, checking out what the vibe is in terms of who is appealing and who is not.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get like this feedback from, these different marketing tools and these polls and whatnot, Reigns doesn't come in that negatively. The data adds up. the data adds up in a way that would position a lot of these guys to be who the mainstream fans would like, who the not necessarily internet fans that spend the big money.
That's what we were talking about. That I
Yeah,
mean, you think about it. Raw's on a Monday night.
yeah.
Kids are at school, so when you have, I really don't think. I mean, if you look at the sales, Roman Reigns is selling T-shirts. He's selling merchandise. He's selling action figures. He's selling stuff.
Oh,
But
they say when you go to house shows, he's getting monster pops.
because that's the ones that are fit, that kids are going to, because that's when they're Saturday night, they're Friday night, they're they're not the Monday and Tuesday where you have you and I going who grew up in the Attitude Era and we're not past it. I mean, we are. I mean, I can honestly sit down and watch Raw and be entertained most of the time. Most of the time, not all the time, but not when they're giving me freaking WLC matches and. Yeah,
I will argue that. I thought the WLC match was awesome.
No, get out of here with that.
I thought it was great. Watch it again.
But I'll say, like, right now, Social Outcast, I love them. They're and the New Day, and they're giving us good stuff right now.
No, they are.
They are. I'm happy.
They're using the 3 hours right, I think, a lot more than they were in the past.
Yeah, you and I'm gonna kind of segue here too.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of this topic, you and I watched WrestleMania together.
Yes.
And I was entertained for some of it. The majority of it, I was not. It was too long of a show. Way too long.
Well, you saw my face during the main event.
Well, I took a piss break during the main event. I sat and watched the women's match, and that stole the show from me. And I went to the bathroom during the main event. Yeah, I didn't care at that point.
And we'll get into WrestleMania. I think right now is a perfect segue. I mean, this was a show that was obviously set the attendance record. WrestleMania itself.
The numbers are still out there. I mean, you don't know. There's so many rumors saying that WWE dockered the numbers. I mean, who knows? But yes, either way, they did break attendance records. Absolutely.
And I'm not saying that this card in particular is the reason why they broke the records, but, in their own weird way of spinning it, I'm sure they will.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, people fail to realize that WrestleMania doesn't sell on the matches. WrestleMania sells on its WrestleMania.
Right.
I mean, I can't tell you, we're Jersey boys, and I can't tell you how many people I knew that actually went down to Texas just to go watch it. And that's, look at a map. We're not close to Texas, and I know, people are sold on. I mean, that card. I'm looking at the card now. It wasn't a bad card, but there was some. It wasn't worth going all the way to Texas for.
It was a card that was actually, I think, for what it's worth, a lot of it was the best that they can do.
With what they had, yeah.
With what they had, but they made so many weird choices that night.
And we're going to get into that. Let's go down the card.
Yep.
And we'll talk about the matches, and we'll get into that. I mean, we started off the show with that 7-man ladder match: Kevin Owens, Ziggler, Zayn, Miz, Stardust, Sin Cara, and Zack Ryder Intercontinental title ladder match. Who did you pick to win that match?
You know what? There was no clear-cut guy, in my opinion, that should have won the match. So by default, I was saying that Owens would just retain, and then he'd go on to feud with Sammy one-on-one. And I think that would have been a great way for Sammy to get the limelight and get the big moment if he could win the IC belt and position him as like the top mid-card face for right now. I think that's the position that he's going into. Whereas like the AJs and the Ambroses and Roman, for what it's worth, they're going to be positioned as your main event faces. But we need a guy in the mid card that's going to kind of lead the pack over there, and I think he's a great candidate for that. Much better than the guy who ended up winning the match.
And that raises a lot of questions now, because where does that leave Kevin Owens? Is he still that Intercontinental title reign? Because I mean, you look who's feuding over it right now. Nothing against them. I mean, the Miz main evented WrestleMania, and we will get into that.
I think Miz is
that show.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's just not that top talent. I mean, I think very highly of Kevin Owens. If you follow the Twitter that we run, I'm a big Kevin Owens guy, and it's just, I think he's just on a whole nother level than obviously Zack Ryder and the Miz. Even though Miz has main evented at WrestleMania before, it's just I feel like it was poor choicing and poor booking right now. I mean, honestly, if I like what you said, and we talked about it while we were watching it, Kevin Owens needed to win, and he needed to go on and have a feud with Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental title, hands down. We sat there with our mouths open when Zack Ryder won. I mean, It was unexpected.
Well, unexpected, yeah. And I mean, have a moment like that, it shouldn't last for a day. I think Miz is
WWE logic.
I think Miz is a perfectly acceptable Intercontinental Champion. The thing is that he's had the belt so many times and it's gone nowhere, and that's the same reason why.
And every time he has it, it's a joke. Last time with Ziggler, he had it, and they played hot potato with the belt.
Yep, and that's another reason why I don't want Dolph to have the belt either.
I think we're just sick of Dolph. He can go away at this point.
We just need, I want fresh guys in the mid card. I think Miz is, right now, for what it's worth, this is the highest he's going to move into the card. I think he should be positioned, honestly, as an upper mid card act. He shouldn't be a main eventer, but he should be a guy that really hovers more mid card, upper mid card. I think the best way to and he should always hype up the fact that he's like the anti-Jericho. He has the bragging rights of being the champion who won in the main event of WrestleMania, but he sucks, and he can't back it up.
Yeah.
But he always has that credibility where you can always you can't count him out because of that. Like, he's never going to get back into contention for the title, and we know that. But the fact that he is who he is and he had that reputation for a while makes him a threat, and he's a great guy to get people over, but he shouldn't be putting over schmucks like Zack Ryder. He shouldn't be feuding with the Dolph Zigglers of the world. I think him and Cesaro going at it now at, Payback?
Yeah.
I think that's the right fit. I think that's a great opportunity for Miz.
Oh, him and Cesaro will have a great match.
I think Miz will sell for him great. I think that Cesaro is going to just, get to show off a little bit. I think that's where you want him. You want to get Cesaro to be like a champion. You want him to look good. Miz is a guy who's going to do that. And he's going to do the same thing probably for a guy like Zayn and other guys as they kind of come up. As for Owens, I'm calling it right now. I think he's winning Money in the Bank.
I think that's the right choice for him.
Yeah.
I think that is. I think he fits that role perfectly. It's always better to have a heel. It works better just to have a heel as Money in the Bank. They get to tease that cash in all the time. And he's the top guy. He's the top mid card right now. I mean, he's really the top heel in the company right now. Aside from Jericho.
Yeah, I mean, Jericho is, and we don't know how much longer he's going to stick around for. I'm assuming only maybe another month or so to put over Ambrose.
And that's too long. Sorry, just saying.
Which is perfect because we're going to talk about the fact that the number one contender for the World Heavyweight Championship lost his match at WrestleMania.
Can I just pause you real quick?
Yeah.
I'm sorry because we just lost a whole lot of subscribers on that comment. It's Jericho was great. Sure, you could think he's putting on good work right now, but enough is enough. He lost to Fandango at WrestleMania. I mean, the guy just needs to go away at this point. Come back, get his Hall of Fame ring. Let's just clarify that. Please do not unsubscribe. Go ahead.
Oh, you can kiss my ass if you like Jericho or not. Like, I don't care, man. I loved the guy for a long time, and I still do, but He serves no purpose in the product anymore. I'm sick and tired of seeing him come and go whenever he wants to. And more importantly, as ridiculous as it was that he won this match, he kind of got booked into a position in a weird way that he had to win this match because he has no more luster when it comes to putting over any of these guys when he comes back and does these feuds as favors.
Mm-hmm.
Like what happened to Mick Foley. Nobody gives a shit when Mick Foley shows up anymore. Mick Foley was like the fifth guy on the ring when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Mick Foley probably should have headlined any class when he retired in 2000. Mick Foley was the biggest star in the hottest time in this business, whose name was not Steve Austin or The Rock. And nobody cares about him anymore because he's jobbed to, which he did a great job with Orton, but then he jobs to Edge, and then, I don't know, he's jobbing to Ric Flair. He's probably jobbing to Carlito at some point.
Now, he did get a win over Heath Slater, I think, during when Heath Slater was calling out all these legends. If I remember correctly, I think he got a W over Heath Slater.
Well, I mean, so did Sid, but it doesn't mean anything.
Our guy.
Sid, who, trust me, many fantasy bookings that we're going to be doing are going to be revolved around Sid being the face of the company.
And Virgil.
Yes, and how we can incorporate a Sid Virgil once-in-a-lifetime match to sell out multiple WrestleManias.
Oh, God. I feel all the unsubscribers coming right now. We're just joking. Fuck Virgil. I do want to get him on the show, though.
We are going to get Virgil on the show. It is a vow of ours that we want to see the Fuck Money King show up here and spread the love.
Virgil, if you're watching, we have an offer that you cannot refuse. It involves Olive Garden, okay, a strip club, and a whole lot of fuck money.
A whole lot of fuck money.
And if you guys don't follow Virgil on Twitter, you need to, because the guy is pure gold. He is pure gold on Twitter.
He's one of a kind.
And you want to win his heart over, just mention breadsticks from Olive Garden and fuck money.
And Meat Sauce Mondays.
Anyway, back to Jericho and Styles. We got so off topic there. But it went from Jericho sucking to Virgil. I mean, I guess they go hand in hand.
The sucking plays it off. But
yeah, a very weird booking decision there. Having I guess when Sting beat Triple H at Mania 31, I guess anything was possible.
We all know that too. That was just...
Well, we're going to get into our Triple H logic a little bit later because we have a lot to talk about. We're going to do a top 5 later in the show. The top 5 worst WrestleMania main events. And we kind of already discussed our list off the air, which, we have some similarities and some differences, but we'll get into all that. And I'm a huge Triple H fan. And he made my list a couple times, but we'll get into all that. Poor booking decision. I think we can both agree on that.
Yes.
AJ, his first WrestleMania, he's the hottest guy on the planet right now, hottest wrestler on the planet. He was last year's PWI Insider's best wrestler in the world. And he loses to, like you said, a guy who comes and goes as he pleases, and he jobs out to, like I said, Fandango at a WrestleMania. I know that happened years ago, but it happened. It happened.
Yeah, Jericho's intentions are noble. And Jericho...
No. If his intentions were noble, Vince McMahon would have came to him and said, we're going to have you go over AJ, and Jericho would have said, that's the wrong choice. Don't do it.
Would you have in any point in time, and I think about this, personally, AJ probably should have swept the series, but Jericho is pretty much bulletproof with his overness right now, but in time, he's going to lose that. And, that's why I feel like a lot of people, like the impact is not felt when Mick Foley is around, when he shows up every so often. I don't want the same thing to happen to him, but the same thing I feel like has happened. When you see Jericho showing up, there's no chance he's winning this feud. When he comes back and he feuds with CM Punk for the title, you're like, that's going to be a great match, but it's a lock that Punk's going to win the title match.
Right.
When he comes back to feud with Fandango, you think maybe he'll win this one. It'll be a fun little blow off for him to do something, and instead he jobs to Fandango, and Fandango goes nowhere. And
well, here's the thing. I mean, I don't even think at the time it was. At the time, I don't think it was terrible booking because, remind you, this was Fandango's debut match. So I could see you wanting to push a new talent, but if you're gonna do that, follow through. If you're gonna have him go over one of the top guys of the new millennium, one of my favorite superstars growing up, if you're gonna have him go over him at WrestleMania, follow through. Go with the momentum, and wrestling has a poor history of not following momentum. And we're gonna get into that. That's gonna be our main topic today, with the Bret Harts story. But follow the momentum. I mean, that could have been a great story. And Fandango, the gimmick sucks. We know that. But he's a great talent. He's phenomenal shape, phenomenal agility, and if given the right gimmick, he could be gold too.
Absolutely. And moving back to the main point here, I think that we're 0 for 2 right now in what the right booking decision was for who should go over on these matches, which brings us to the originally scheduled 4-on-3 match for the tag team championships, which turned into a 6-man tag team match, which was for no title at all. And that's the New Day versus the League of Nations. Now,
and then you turn around 2 weeks later, and we have the probably best tag team division that we've seen since the Attitude Era.
Oh yeah, no, this is actually a fully stocked tag division right now. When we were in the brand extension era, I don't think there were any legitimate, true tag teams besides.
Yeah, we had two. Yeah, we had 2 tag team titles.
Yeah, we had 2 tag team titles, but they were mostly getting beaten around with random main event guys holding the belts at times, like
Jericho.
Right, Jericho, DX, Cena, and whoever he was feuding with.
Rated
RKO. I mean, and then you somehow transition the belts all the way down to guys like Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch. And, the London and Kendrick stuff was good. Eminem was okay. But they did a lot of things wrong. And they did not have the star power for those belts, which is why it's such a relief that they now have a legitimate stable of guys that they can count on. The guys like New Day, the Usos, the Dudleys, even jobber teams like the Ascension. The fact that they have jobber teams, I never thought I'd see that day again.
Poor Ascension too. Poor them. I mean, JBL got that shovel out for them.
Well, they're a waste, but New Day losing the League of Nations, the most overact, I think, on the show by far was the New Day. And, at least in terms of the guys that have been around, they are the most overact in the company right now.
Right.
I mean,
now, I will tell you how I feel about this, because I feel very strongly about this. I don't necessarily, at the time, because of what followed, I did not mind the outcome of this match. It led up great to having Austin, Michaels, and Foley come out and, dismantle the League of Nations. But what followed on Raw, kicking Wade Barrett out, and I get it, his contract's up. That's probably the last we've ever seen of Bad News Barrett, Wade Barrett, whatever. And I get that. But you don't have them, if you're going to do that and say he was the weak link, you don't have them win a WrestleMania match the day before. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
If you're going to do that, WWE needs to get back to booking reality. This is the reality era. Book stuff that makes sense. If I just lost a match at WrestleMania, then I got my butt kicked by 3 legends, then I lose again on Raw, and I have the Wyatts looking for me. yeah, I'm going to get pissed off. And you know what? Yeah, that will lead me to possibly kick out the weakest link. Not
Yeah.
coming off of a WrestleMania win, you know.
100% agreed.
Xavier Woods got beat down by Austin too. He suffered the Stone Cold Stunner. You don't see him kicking out Kofi Kingston of the New Day. You know, it just doesn't. It didn't make sense to me.
No. I agree. It was a little bit silly. It was a little ridiculous. I mean, it was fun to see the guys out there. It was a nice mark out moment. It was kind of silly, but we all had fun with that, admittedly.
Mm-hmm.
So we're 0 for 3 overall, I think, in terms of who was the right person to go over.
Right.
You could say maybe 0 for 2.5 because we did get the fun little reunion of these guys to show up. But overall, we're kind of scratching our heads and saying, what the fuck in terms of these decisions.
Right. And, well, you know what? Those 3 guys could have been somewhere else on the card, and they could have played a factor in what we thought the match was going to be flooded with interference. But that didn't happen either.
Did not happen.
So we got through AJ. We got through the ladder match. The New Day match. I want to talk about a match that actually I've heard a lot of negative about. I thought it was good. Ambrose and Lesnar, the no holds barred match. I didn't think it was bad. A lot of people said that it should have went longer. I probably should have went longer than the main event because that main event just didn't make sense. But
yeah, I think expectations were high for this one. I think that they got off to a really hot start with their feud with the build up to Fastlane and the story of Ambrose not knowing why he should be so intimidated by Brock Lesnar. And, this could have been a really, really fun, just brawl. Like Brock beating the shit out of Dean Ambrose and Ambrose coming back with a lot of random, stuff. And
let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand it. And I said it to you as we were watching the show. I said, Thursday night on SmackDown, the whole, before WrestleMania, the whole idea of that promo, or the whole segment was Dean Ambrose came down with a little red wagon and filled it with all the weapons that he was given.
Right.
He did not come down with that at WrestleMania.
No, he didn't.
He did attempt the whole chainsaw thing, but people were mad that he didn't use the chainsaw. What is he going to do? Cut Brock Lesnar in half? It's not going to happen. But if you're not going to use it, don't tease us with it.
Right.
Don't. Most of us are adults that are still watching this product, and we see right through the baby childish bullshit. We knew the chainsaw was going to be used. Just don't have it.
Right.
Don't have it. Don't have him do that segment on SmackDown if you're not going to use it.
Absolutely. And it's a good shock value type of thing to do, but the way I really envisioned this match going was that it was probably going to go 20 minutes or so, and I think this came in at 12 minutes or something like that. And I would have had, Ambrose trying to put up a fight, be real scrappy, have Brock just throw him around like a rag doll, though, kind of like how he did to Cena, kind of like how he did to Reigns. And, Ambrose just not staying down and maybe even passing out to the Kimura lock. And, this could have been, in my opinion, Dean Ambrose's moment like when Steve Austin was bleeding in the sharpshooter. You don't have to mimic that exactly, but Dean Ambrose basically saying, I'm not afraid of Brock Lesnar, taking everything Brock Lesnar has, getting the ever-loving shit kicked out of him, getting in a few good shots, but ultimately being put out, without giving up, without being pinned, without having to tap out, but just, passing out because he would refuse to let this man say that he got the best of him. I think that could have been one of those moments if it was done organically. And instead, it was a squash match. It was a squash match, which, that's Brock's thing now. And
it is. And I don't know. I think at this point, Dean Ambrose, I love him. I think he's amazing. I think he's got a bright future. I think he's going to be a WWE champion one day. But for this time, I think if I like where you were going, but there's no question here that Brock Lesnar is going to win.
No, there was
You don't have him beat the streak and then lose to Dean Ambrose. No ill will against Dean Ambrose. He's, like I said, one of my favorites right now. But there's no way that Brock was losing that match. And they chose to do it the wrong way. You could have built up Dean Ambrose, but I think a part of them, their thinking is they don't want to build up Dean Ambrose anymore. They think he's going to overshadow the Golden Boy.
Yep.
How bad would that have been for an epic ending to that match? Like you just said, him passing out to the Kimura lock, and then later in the show, his brother Roman Reigns getting booed out of the building. How bad would that have been?
That would have been pretty bad.
Yeah. So you have Dean Ambrose as the most over guy, and he's not going anywhere.
Yep.
But yeah, I think overall, this match wasn't a question of did they make the right call. They made the only call that they had.
Well, yeah, I think in the end,
Lesnar was going to go over.
Yes.
And for anybody that thought that house show, Dean Ambrose was going to take the title from Triple H, just go back to reading comic books or something, because that was never going to happen.
Would have been nice.
It would have been. And
could have shook up the card quite a bit.
I'm sure people are wondering right now why we haven't mentioned the pre-show matches, because they sucked.
They were a waste of time. I mean,
I'm not even going to waste our time discussing them.
I honestly thought a 10-person Divas match was the best showing on the pre-card. I think the Dudleys and the Usos was boring. I thought that, Kalisto and Ryback was a waste of time. That's why they're on the pre-show.
Right. And
part of the real show.
Ticket problems. There was nobody even in the building for Kalisto and Ryback. So, there was nobody in there. And the only thing that I will say is Lana has some work to do in the ring.
Yes.
Eva Marie is getting better, whether anybody wants to admit it or not. She's getting better, but she'll never be like Sasha, Becky, or Charlotte. And let's talk about that now.
Yeah.
No more butterfly belt. We have a WWE Women's Championship. We all knew it was coming. We all got it a day sooner than we thought. My initial reaction to the title was I didn't like it. I thought it should have its own identity, not be a smaller version of the WWE title. But it's grown on me. I get it. They want to all be superstars and not focus on gender or anything. So I get that aspect of it. I like it. I think it's a good thing to have. Diva is kind of a derogatory term if you ask a lot of women. And we got one hell of a match. Well, before we even get to the match, those entrances by Charlotte and Sasha were awesome, especially Charlotte.
I thought Sasha had a great entrance. I thought it was very WrestleMania worthy. I thought it was a spoiler that she was going to win the match.
Absolutely. We didn't get that.
Nope. Charlotte retains. Same old.
How do you feel about that? Because I'm kind of mixed on that. Did they make the right choice of Charlotte winning?
I don't think so. You know what? This is complicated. I think Sasha's the right choice in terms of who actually should be the champion.
Mm-hmm.
But I think from a story perspective, Becky should have finally had her chance. She's been jobbing left and right in this feud with Charlotte. And, Becky's still got credibility, but, wins matter, at least on the show. Wins might not matter in terms of who's over, but, you can't keep competing for the title if you lose like 3 or 4 matches for the title.
Right.
You got to move them down the card in that case. So, pull the trigger, let her win. I think it gives a little international flavor maybe even, which isn't a bad thing. I know the last time we had an Irish ginger as champion, things weren't exactly wonderful, but
Gee, who are you talking about, Mr. 515?
Maybe, but I think the crowd would have popped huge if either one of them won. I think Charlotte's a little played out, and she maybe needs to start chasing and challenging as a heel. She's got
I
to get.
agree, but I will say this about Charlotte. When she came up to the whole Divas Revolution, I loved her in that NXT. I thought she was a great talent. She came up, and I was not feeling it. She was not working for me. I was not a fan of the babyface Charlotte. Even the first 2 or 3 weeks she was with Flair, I wasn't her father, Ric Flair.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you didn't, get that by now, her father is Ric Flair.
Interesting.
Yeah, crazy, right? That's just then. But I wasn't feeling it the first 2 weeks, but she's coming into her own, and she's making me hate her as a heel, not as an athlete. I like the fact that she's making me not like her, and
Right.
she is doing it on her own. I mean, her promos are her own.
Yes.
And she's doing a good job. I like the fact that I wanted Sasha to win. I thought Sasha was definitely going over, no question. But it makes sense to have Charlotte go over because now kind of gives you that what Jericho has sold on us for all these years. He was the first undisputed champion. Well, now Charlotte as a heel, she was the last Divas champion and the first women's champion, and we're going to hear about that for the next 20 years. So
Right.
I thought for that, it works.
Okay.
I don't need it.
So we're 1 for 5 so far?
I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah, 1 for 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that leads us to the match that we felt should have been the main event.
I saw that cage coming down, man, and I cried a little bit
My
because
heart's-
you knew what was coming. You knew little Vince McMahon, little crybaby temper tantrum, had gotten his way.
Yep.
And I'm just going to jump in here and say it. Looking back, 2 weeks in now, 2 weeks after, the match it's forgotten about. It made no sense. You sat there and said you disown Shane as a son. He's dead to you. And he's been in control of Raw the past 2 weeks.
Right.
And it makes zero sense to me why you would put these stipulations on the line. If you never would have made that stipulation about The Undertaker, Shane McMahon could have won that match, and just been in control of Raw. But now you go out of storyline, and she's in charge of Raw for 2 weeks, and you really don't know why. It's not really explained. I mean, the first one was kind of like, go ahead, go fail. Yeah, go, here it is. And then this past week was announced on WWE.com that Shane was in charge again.
Yep, because he did such a good job, according to everybody.
Where is Stephanie? Where's Shane? Why does this not lead up to maybe a payback match to kind of really get Shane out of power? Have Triple H versus Shane. That should have been a Mania match. Why not do it now?
That absolutely should have been. I mean, I am shocked, and I know that we both said this, that there were no run-ins in this match.
I thought once WWE got me. They got me. I did not think that cage spot was for Shane to jump off. I thought it was for people to run in.
Yes, I agree. And, did I think Shane was going to jump? I thought at this age, maybe he wasn't going to. That they wouldn't take the risk as a company either because of the PG standing. And Shane's in his mid-40s. His children are standing right outside there. His mother's there. His wife is there.
And we talked about it. That cage is a lot bigger than the original cage.
Yes, it is. It's got to be significantly higher.
Yeah, I mean, he's got more street cred than Mick Foley at this point in my book. I mean, if you think about it, you look back, and Shane McMahon has really, really done a lot for us fans.
Oh, he puts it on the line every time he works. I mean, he follows Vince's motto of if he wouldn't do it, he's not going to make you do it. And I believe that Shane would follow that through very, very to the key, to the T. So, he's willing to jump off Titantrons. He's willing to fly through tables, whatever. He does it.
Right. And he sold it very well the next night, too. I mean, that's, consistent booking. And, going back real quick, so did Kevin Owens. I mean, phenomenal job selling his injuries from the previous night. I think that's another thing that we're missing a lot of right now.
Agreed.
Right decision here? Wrong decision?
Wrong decision on a lot of things. Wrong decision in terms of match placement. Wrong decision in terms of who went over based off how the last 2 weeks have been booked.
Can I just throw this out there to you?
Yeah.
I know we're not big. Well, I used to be. I'm not. I know you're not a big fan of him anymore. Dolph Ziggler. We just had a promo on Raw that if he beat Triple H in a match, he could have his WrestleMania moment.
Mm-hmm.
He's had this thing with the Authority. He was fired by the Authority. Why didn't he run in here and try to cost Taker the match to put Shane in charge? And the list goes on of guys. I mean, you could have had, I know Daniel Bryan wasn't on the show, but if he was healthy and doing something on the show, that could have been a spot for him. Cena, obviously, we thought that was the gold mine right there to have Cena interfere.
Yep.
And, why didn't you have a Kane or a Big Show or, somebody that's been working with the Authority?
Yeah.
J&J Security come out, and the Mean Street Posse, where the hell were they?
Yep. Well, wanted the posse that night.
We wanted the posse. Me and you were playing that theme song, waiting for it to hit.
Oh, you know it. We'll be back one day, I'm sure.
God, I hope so. Keep Shane around. Put the posse in charge on a day-to-day basis.
But we've talked a little bit about how we would have played this out a little differently. We probably would have had this match switch with the placement of Triple H and Roman Reigns.
Well, I think you said it best when we talked off the air. Control the company means a lot more than the title, because without the company, you don't have the title.
Yep.
So, yes, this needed to be the main event. But we know why it wasn't, and we'll get into that. But it's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Yeah. That great match. Thank you, Shane. For destroying yourself in front of your family on TV in front of 100,000 people, and great match. Poor booking. Poor booking.
Yep.
So, yeah, we're both in agreement that poorly booked. So, Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Few surprises here in that.
Yeah.
Shaquille O'Neal, DDP, Tatanka, who didn't even get a entrance or a mention. I was sitting next to you, and I said, damn, is that Tatanka back there? And sure shit, he was, but not for long. Right decision here, having Baron Corbin?
It's as right of the decision as you can make with something like this. The Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, I don't care for it. I think it's kind of stupid.
That's because you're a Hogan fan.
No, it's because what it is, it's an excuse to give everybody a shot to be on the show. But I mean, does it ever?
But at least, you know what? At least now, in the years that we've had it, it's a meaningful reason to have everybody on the show, as opposed to, oh my God, it's just a battle royal on the pre-show. At least now you're giving them a meaning to it.
If they can make it actually mean something, then I might get on board with that. But to me, the last 2 years with, even though Cesaro got to become a Paul Heyman guy and then faded out into the mid-card and really kind of died out, and the Big Show is just a big fat piece of shit who's still on the air after 20 years, it hasn't done anybody much good.
You know what? I like how you mentioned Cesaro. Maybe that could be a future podcast of ours. Rebook that.
I would like to see him get a more appropriate push from that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that. We could make that an upcoming episode.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, aside from Baron Corbin, I thought, in my heart of hearts that Mark Henry was going to get it for the simple fact that probably one of his last matches, and it was in his hometown. I'm glad he didn't because that would have been just a waste, and you could write off the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal next year because fuck Mark Henry at this point. He needs to go away.
Yes.
But yeah, I like the decision, and I'm okay with it. The only other guy I probably would have put over is somebody for Social Outcast, and we know that's not happening.
Right.
Unfortunately, R.I.P. Now we could spend a little bit of time on the crap event or the main event, whatever you want to call it. 27 minutes of bullshit.
It was pretty bad.
Plus, don't forget the other previous 40 minutes of Triple H's entrance.
Yes. I mean, and we're totally skipping over the epic Rock versus Eric Rowan match for this reason.
You know what? I don't even want to. I don't even want to talk about that. It was a nice little surprise when I thought it was going to be Bray and Rock, but
Right.
you gave me Eric Rowan.
Mm-hmm.
Snooze fest.
So the main event is for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Triple H is
All right. Before you get into that, enlighten our viewers of why this was the main event.
Well, this is the main event for, I think, a couple of reasons. One, nobody else was on the roster. And two, I believe Hunter probably threw a fit and said that he needed to go on last because the championship should always be the main event, which...
Especially when Triple H is defending it.
Right. Although he's been upstaged now for the third time when he's done this. And that's going to be a point of contention we'll talk about in the future. But, I mean, this one is more along the lines of it was completely overshadowed by the Shane and the Undertaker situation. There was the fact that there is a babyface that nobody is behind, nobody sees as sympathetic. And I think a part of it is people are just sick of the authority also.
Well,
and I mean,
you know what? That's the problem right there. I mean, you said he's not booked as or seen as sympathetic. That character shouldn't be sympathetic or sympathize with. He needs to be the ass kicker. He needs to be a Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm okay with leaving the Attitude Era in the past, but Roman Reigns is not going to be your Hogan. He's not going to be your Cena. He needs to be the Samoan badass.
Yes.
That's it.
We've talked about that before. He needs to be a predominant ass kicker. He needs to be a silent guy like a Batista. He needs to be a guy who goes out there and just wants to fight. I think the Austin comparison, the way they booked him against the Authority, was he wasn't going to take their crap, but he wasn't going to sit there and trade insults with them. He was just going to go fight.
How much longer do you give this promo that he's been giving? I'm not a good guy. I'm not a bad guy. I'm the guy. Because we've got it 2 weeks in a row now.
I think it's his catchphrase at this point.
You believe that.
You replace that with that I can and I will. I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a good guy. I'm the guy is pretty polar opposite. That's a pretty heelish thing to start off with.
Mm-hmm. And you're putting him up against a top babyface in not only the company, in the world.
Maybe so, yeah. I mean, we're looking at it like that.
Now, into this match a little bit, it had a great story going into it. I mean, let's face it, he got over when he attacked Triple H at TLC. That's when he started, coming up. And Triple H coming back at Royal Rumble, I marked out for. I was happy. I was happy to see Triple H win the title, the couple beatdowns they gave each other. this match was not meant to be a NCAA wrestling match. There was not meant to be sleeper holds. There was not meant to be arm bars and other submission holds that I'm sure Chris Jericho could name for you.
And
this match needed to be a brawl.
Yes. And this is a mistake Triple H made 7 years ago prior when he fought Randy Orton. Very heated feud, very well built up. But putting the stipulation that if he's DQ'd, he loses the title took away all of the potential excitement, all the potential. You wanted to see a fight. You didn't want to see a wrestling match. And if they presented it like that, maybe things would have ended up better. But Hunter wants to put on some kind of a match where he's, showing off his work rate to kind of prove to people that he could still go. And listen, he's had some great showings. I thought his match against Ambrose was great, actually. I think he looks like he's in great shape.
Even the match with Ziggler, that was a really good Raw match.
And with a guy like Reigns, I mean, you guys just brawl. You're going to get in some big spots. You're going to get in some, big pop spots. You're going to get spears and Superman punches. You're going to get spine busters and pedigrees. Power stuff. That's what you need to see. You don't want to see him work the arm for 20 minutes.
And I'm sorry, Roman Reigns is 27, 26, maybe 28 at max. He can go for 30 minutes. He can go. He can go. You don't need to put him in the armbar for 10 minutes.
No.
He can go. You can put him in the match. But we saw the writing was on the wall, guys. It was on the wall when he was entry number 1 in the Royal Rumble, and they took him out halfway, only to come back. He was sitting in the back. He didn't even sell an injury at that Royal Rumble. Nothing. It was just for the water break. They're trying to protect him. They're trying to protect him, and you don't need to protect him. The guy can go. Give him a chance.
Agreed.
Get AJ Lee to tweet. Give Roman Reigns a chance.
So we'll see where this goes, but overall the show was not the best. It could have been a lot better if some different booking changes were made, but you can't change that now. We have.
Overall, what do you rate it?
It's probably a 4 out of 10. It's not the worst show. It's just a very underwhelming show.
WrestleMania 9.
It's no Hogan Yokozuna, but it
had a lot of feel to that, though. I mean, you think about the botches that they had. First of all, going back to the tag match, they're promoting it as a 4-on-3 title match. Mm-hmm. That didn't happen. Then all the promotion said Roman Reigns and Triple H was no DQ. That was never officially announced. Mm. It was very sloppy, just like a Hogan versus Yoko.
Right. Hogan and Yoko was a 20-second match.
But it should have never been a match. It was sloppy booking.
It was the greatest choice of all time. Still, I don't care what anybody says.
Says a Hogan fan.
I am a Hogan fan, and I don't care. When I was 9, I pissed my pants in excitement, and I don't regret that for a second. But
yeah, it happens.
Overall, not a great show. I give it a 4 out of 10. What do you give it, Rockwell?
I am giving it. I did not like it. I'm gonna give it. We give it a 2 out of 10. I mean, I don't think it's the worst WrestleMania I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Injuries hurt. I think WWE needs to start protecting their guys. They need to do something to protect them. And you need to book better, logical booking.
Yep.
I think they're scared of it. They have no logic. You hire all these soap opera writers, and they leave out the logic.
Yeah.
Only a few guys had that. I mean, like I touched on it before. You got your Kevin Owens selling the injury. You got Shane McMahon selling the injury. I give it a 2, especially off of last year. I mean, last year I thought we got a great WrestleMania. But yeah, there's always next year in Orlando. Shaq versus Big Show, main event. Book it.
Yeah,
Big Show's going to turn heel and face 20 times in that match alone.
totally do it.
That people will buy it. All right, so since we're talking about
We got a Penny
worst
Hardaway
WrestleMania,
running. If
what's
Shaq
that?
Big Show fight in Orlando,
A run-in?
we get a run-in from Penny Hardaway to cost Shaq the match.
I think Kobe Bryant helps him.
Then Kobe helps Shaq to win.
He's retired now, and why not?
Well, they're in Orlando. I mean, I don't know if you watched the 30 for 30 last night, but it was all about the Magic in the 90s and how they could have been something. I wonder if Penny gets his revenge at WrestleMania.
Could happen.
We'll see.
Could happen. So, top 5. You want to get into that, and then we'll talk about our main topic.
We were talking a lot about how this was a very underwhelming and disappointing WrestleMania main event, so we got to talking about what our worst 5 main events.
So we'll go back and forth. You do your 5, I'll do my 5, and
all right.
You do your 4, I'll do my 4. We'll go back and forth.
All right. So
go ahead, take it away.
All right, my number 5 was an early one, so forgive it. It just didn't have some of the sizzle that some of the earlier WrestleMania main events had, and that was Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy at WrestleMania 2. This clearly, in my opinion, should have been Hogan Piper to settle their feud once and for all. But they want to do Hogan versus a big guy, and Andre wasn't a heel yet. And unfortunately, we get King Kong Bundy, who just isn't the type of guy who I think is worthy in any time frame whatsoever of main eventing WrestleMania, even if he was unmarried with children.
Right. Okay. My top 5, we're basing these matches on a couple things, not just wrestling match, but the build and the hype that it had to it and all that good stuff. My number 5 is the most recent, Triple H and Roman Reigns. The build was very good. I had no problem with that being the main event until we got there. The card was too long. So by the time we actually got to the main event, I was done. I was ready to go home.
Yeah.
It was very underwhelming. Like I said, it should have been a brawl. These guys, hated each other. The only good thing to come out of that was Stephanie getting speared. That was it. Aside from that, I had no excitement to this match. Too many rest holds for a guy that you're trying to push as your top star.
Right.
It was a terrible match. I'm sorry.
No, I agree. I mean, I don't know if it's top 5 worthy, but it was very disappointing.
Well,
sure.
the sad part is 2 of these guys I really like. Triple H was my top guy back in the day, and still is to this day. But unfortunately, he makes my list 3 times. So, yeah.
Triple something.
Triple worst.
So, number 4 on your list. What did you have for number 4?
Cena, Miz, 27.
Okay.
I don't hate the fact that Miz was champion at the time.
Right.
We talked about it. He was the right guy, right place, right time.
Mm-hmm.
He was over. He was a good guy, but the match and the whole card was just awful. I was not engaged in this match at all. I think the outcome was terrible. This match just felt like it was just setting up for the next year. It didn't. Yeah. There was no significance towards it.
Fair enough. I actually have that as my number 2.
Okay.
But my number 4, and I know you said I'm a Hogan guy, but Hogan comes in at 5 and 4 on this list.
Yeah.
Hogan Sid from WrestleMania 8.
Yeah, our boy Sid.
For maybe 2 reasons. One, just a terrible, terrible match with a really random Papa Shango run-in that sets in the Return of the Ultimate Warrior, which was awesome as a kid. But I think the second reason, obviously, is because this was WrestleMania 8. This was Hogan Flair's year. And instead, despite the fact that we got the awesome Savage Flair match, why did we get Hogan Sid in place for Hogan? I'll never understand it. I know that he took time off afterwards, but something I'm sure could have been arranged where Hogan could have had the match with Flair, gone over and, taken some time off and wrestled like once or twice to lead up to SummerSlam or whatever you want to do from there. To me, what the fuck? That's all I have to say about that one.
Yeah, I mean, really, Flair and Hogan was the way to go. And
Yeah.
we dropped the ball making this list. I know we talked after it, but I'm a scout. I don't change my my answers. But yeah, I thought about that after I had already made my list. It needed to be, Hogan and Flair. That was the match that needed to happen, and
I agree.
it didn't. It was the right match. I guess it was just the wrong time. I mean, we ended up getting it later in WCW, but the magic was already gone.
Very much so. Very much so.
Number 3, not that it was a terrible match. It was my Fatal 4-Way 2000. That match needed to be Rock and Triple H. There's too much going on. I'm glad Foley got his WrestleMania moment, but he ended up getting another one 6 years later in the match with Edge. So it was a moot point, right?
It was. It's ironically the most Russo-ish main event of the Attitude Era for WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't involved with it.
Go figure, right?
So,
but it didn't feel like they were fighting over the title. It just felt like the McMahons were manipulating these guys into going out and beating the crap out of each other. And the title was just extra. That match needed to be Rock and Triple H. And you put in the Big Show because Shane needed somebody. You put in Foley to give him his WrestleMania moment. And the magic that should have been is gone.
I agree. I mean, that wasn't on my list, but I definitely see where you're coming from. I thought it was a very disappointing main event. I remember sitting there and thinking it was dragged on way too long, and could not wait for the show to end. And even though Rock Triple H was a retread that we saw many times, those were far and away the two biggest guys in the company at that time with Austin injured. And, if Triple H is playing the biggest heel and Austin's not the guy who could take him out, then, I damn sure want to see The Rock take him down one more time and take the belt off of him.
It's a match that has happened everywhere but WrestleMania, still 16 years later.
No, yeah, and I mean, that's another thing that's kind of an anomaly about it all, is that one-on-one, those guys have never gone against each other at WrestleMania, and I don't know if we'll ever see it. I mean, there's a chance possibly down the line we will, but, I mean, that was the best time to do it.
What did you have at number 3?
Number 3, I had Triple H and Jericho from WrestleMania 18.
Triple H will make my list with that match, too. I'll tell you that.
I personally feel like this was just a very poorly booked feud. I feel like this was just nonsense that was completely overshadowed by the really exciting, emotionally just Hogan Rock saga that we were seeing. I mean, it wasn't Hogan Rock just completely outshined in the build. Everybody was talking about the NWO. Nobody gave a shit about this Triple H Stephanie divorce thing with Jericho hanging out with Stephanie. If he was fucking her, maybe it'd be a little bit cooler, but he's just kind of brought around like his little sidekick, picking up dog shit for her or whatever, even though it's Triple H's dog.
I will say this now because this match is on my list, and I just don't want to forget to say it later. It was a match that A, should have never happened, and we'll get into that on our next podcast. And B, it's the main event that should have never happened, because if you're going to stick with the same card, Rock and Hogan should have been the main event.
Yep. And I think, that's a big thing to keep in mind. it was just not the right fit in the end. Number
All right.
two, I said my number two was Cena Miz. We kind of went over the reasons. I think you hit them pretty spot on in terms of why it was the wrong fit. It's not that these guys weren't the right two guys to have that main event match. It's just that it wasn't a good match. And all it was really a prequel to the Rock Cena matches we'd get the next 2 years afterwards. So never should you just completely waste a WrestleMania main event to build up another one. If you're going to set up a rematch, make sure that you make the most out of it and not just do what these guys did here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. I already touched on it.
Yep.
I have no problem with Miz. I thought Miz was the right guy at the right place at the right time. But it just, like you said, it was just a prequel to Rock and Cena. Nothing more.
Yeah. So what did you have as number two?
My number two was, and I know you love the moment because we already talked about it, Hart and Yokozuna, WrestleMania 9. Bret Hart needed to be the guy to win that match and leave as WWE champion. But yet again, and we're going to talk about this later on, yet again, Hogan gets his way and he closes out another WrestleMania as the champion. And it was a poorly run match too. I mean,
Yes.
Bret Hart is the excellence of execution, and no fault of his own. There's nothing he could do with Yokozuna. Yokozuna was a big guy. It was a very slow paced match, and the ending made no sense, and it was not good. Not good. It wasn't. It made no sense. So.
All right.
Number one.
Number one, it's maybe a dark horse choice, but for me, when I think about it, and I think about everything that could have been this year, and we didn't get it because of so many different reasons, we were stuck with this main event, and that was Sid and Undertaker at WrestleMania 13.
Yep.
And that means Sid's two main events made my top five in the worst, even though he's still our guy. But Sid, I mean, when you look at where this could have gone, this was originally supposed to be Bret Shawn 2. Couldn't get that because he lost his smile. Then it looked like after Bret won the four-way for the title that we would get Bret versus Undertaker, but Sid won the belt off of him to clear out Austin and Bret. And then they teased us again by having a cage match the week before Mania with Bret and Sid, where if Bret won, his match with Austin would be for the title. And instead, we kept going with Sid Taker, which, of course, got completely overshadowed by Bret and Austin's incredible match, which set the tone for so many different things. And Sid shit his pants in the main event when he got 2 pound. So, it was a mess. It literally was a mess. I don't know. What did you have as your all-time worst? I'm assuming.
No, I agree with you. That match was terrible. But again, I forgot WrestleMania 13 even existed. That's how bad it was. So when I was putting out this list, I brain farted that. My number one though was on your top. I don't remember what number it came in, but it was Jericho Triple H.
Yeah.
And for the same reasons that I stated earlier, it's the match that should have never happened. It's the match that should have never happened, and the main event that should have never happened. It was, like you said, the story. It was a lack of a storyline, and it just had no business being the main event of a Rock and Hogan match.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was our top five.
Top five at the time.
Top five, and then we get to go in to the main event of this podcast.
Yes. So, I mean, the reason why we decided to do this was pretty cut and dry.
I mean, if you don't understand what we're doing or why we're doing it, just read the name of the Twitter and the name of the YouTube channel and the podcast, Wrestling Rebook.
Yep, this is our chance to go back and look at some of the biggest misses in the history of professional wrestling, some of the hottest trends that could have been.
And where do we start at children?
I think we're starting at one of the biggest what ifs in history. Better Bret Hart's run in WCW could have been. Right. And let's just put this into perspective here. A couple of things. In 1996, Bret Hart was given a choice to either leave the WWF and go to WCW, to be given a very lucrative contract at the time. How they would have used him, up for debate. But Bret stayed loyal, and he signed what was known and is known as now maybe the biggest contract in the history of wrestling. He signed a 20-year deal, which would be expiring actually right around this time.
And look what happened. He ended up shit in the bed. I mean, he not shit in the bed. I'm sorry. I think we lost my co-host here. That's why I'm a little distracted right now. Let's see if we can get him back in here, because what's a show without the co-host? Sorry, folks. I feel like we're having technical difficulties, I guess, with Google Hangouts. But like he said, it was one of the biggest what ifs in wrestling. I mean, you had he had just signed that 20-year deal, and he lasted 2 years of that deal. Went to WCW, got hurt, ended his career, and WCW didn't even know how to use him. They had no idea what they were doing with him. We're trying to get the co-host back here. I don't know what happened to him. But yeah, it was. So, I guess I'll do this solo for now. I'll give my take on it, my point of view, and how I would have done it. And hopefully, if we get Ninja Pete is his wrestling name, we'll get Ninja Pete back here. Let him give you your side. So we have the biggest star in WWE. Hey, you're back.
I am back.
What happened to you? We lost you?
No, yeah, I think we did. I don't know what happened. What did I miss?
All right, I was trying to get you back, and I just kind of I was having a Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal here by myself. It was a little filler to the main event. So sorry fans for the technical difficulties. I guess we're just the Superdome, I guess you could say, right?
You could say that.
But hey, Ninja Pete, can we do a retake here? Maybe retake it?
Sure. So
no, you weren't supposed to say sure.
Oh.
What were you supposed to say?
What was I supposed to say? I was supposed to talk about what's going on if Bret Hart had gone to WCW and they booked him correctly.
I was going for that Sid promo that we always joke about, but yeah, thanks for throwing me to the bus.
Ah, well, I didn't realize that. So, can we do this again?
No, we're live, pal. Let's go.
I got a retake?
Nope, we're live, pal. Let's go.
Oh, crap. Anyway.
So, yes, as I was saying when you were, off on your little vacation there and we couldn't find you, technical difficulties, that it was Bret Hart was the hottest guy in WWE. Like you said, just signing that 20-year contract.
Right.
Goes off to WCW. They don't know how to book him, and he gets hurt, shortens his career, and we think that things could have been a little bit different.
They definitely could have been. I mean, like I said, Bret came off an incredible year, I think. I think Bret came off from that 96 to 97 stretch where he re-signed with the WWF. It was one of the best years I think that any professional wrestler has ever had, in all honesty. And this is a guy that, mind you, was pretty much the top face in the company for 3.5, 4 years prior to this, and came back as such, and in turn made arguably the biggest face in the history of wrestling feud with Steve Austin. And at the same time revived his career by finding a second life as a heel himself. And one of the more, he was only a heel in the United States, and not a heel in Canada and the rest of the world. And the dynamics that we saw at the time, I think, were really, really interesting. Bret had so much going on with both Austin and with Shawn Michaels. And then he had the wrestling fans turning on him for not being pro-American, even though he was always Canadian. You know, wake up, people. But he can pivot. Like, he was able to go back and forth between those two guys. And I don't know if you were really watching all that deep at the time, Rockwell. I know you're a little younger than me, but Raw was on my TV religiously, even more so maybe during the Attitude Era at that time. I could not stop watching what Bret Hart and the Hart Foundation were going to do against Steve Austin, how Shawn Michaels was going to, you know, when they bring in other people too. It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. Bret was the MVP of that year for the company. And a lot of people thought at that time that Bret leaving meant the WWF was going to die. They were going to go out of business. And maybe they would have. I don't think that's the case. I think that they had a lot of things in place. But in a weird way, Bret Hart leaving was almost... it's funny. It's like a reverse Curse of the Bambino.
Oh yeah, and that has nothing, nothing on Bret Hart. WCW just didn't know how to book him. I mean, you had a guy here coming off of one hell of a career, entire career in the WWF. I mean, Vince McMahon can make stars, and you could say, Vince makes the stars, the star makes the stars. Bret Hart was a superstar in the WWF, and Montreal, man, Bret screwed Bret. That was the selling point of him going to WCW. How do you miss that? How do you miss that opportunity?
Exactly.
WCW needed to capitalize on that. I mean, coming out of the gate, that was a huge, huge moment in the world of wrestling, not just the WWF, or the world of wrestling, when everybody knows what happened. He needed to come in hot off of that and be the biggest babyface in WCW since frickin' Hogan, since Austin in the WWF, and since Cena in WWE. He needed to be that guy in WCW at that time.
I agree. He should have been coming in red hot. I mean,
let's face it. I mean, this was what, 97, right? 97, and by this time, the NWO was getting stale. Let's face it; they were starting to get stale. Hogan was starting to get stale. Bret Hart needed to be the guy to go in there and change the entire landscape of WCW. And he will get into it, but he needed to be the guy to forever in WCW. get rid of the NWO.
Yeah, no, and I mean that's what we have to figure out here is how you bring in Bret, how you play off what happened in Montreal, how you build to him coming in and making him the face that he needs to be, and how you build ultimately, I think, to a Hogan Bret showdown, the match that we never really got.
Well, let's just put all the cards on the table here. Bret Hogan, that needed to happen in 1 year's time at their WrestleMania Starrcade in December of '98.
Yes.
That's when that needed to happen.
So they could have started building up for a year to get to this match.
Now, how do you get there? Who else is in the NWO that might have targets on their back for Bret Hart?
Well, here's the thing. Everybody in the NWO has a target on his back for Bret Hart. Nash, because they're clique buddies with Shawn. Definitely play out. Kurt Hennig and Bret have a long history. And I think you can get a little... Hennig at the time was actually a very valued member of the NWO. You know, he was the guy who attacked Ric Flair and killed the Four Horsemen. You know, he was the U.S. champion going into Starrcade. You know, he had the second most important belt in the company. And he had, he had the main undercard match on Starrcade, which was him and DDP for the U.S. title. So,
that was a good match, too.
It was a good match. And, you know, I think that shouldn't be ignored. I mean, Hennig kind of lost more steam in 98 and 99, but he was red hot in 97. He was getting a lot of recognition, a lot of pushing to be considered a real main player for the company at the time. I think the one thing you do is, I mean, obviously, let's start all the way back at Montreal. Obviously, the camera's cut before you could see Bret signaling WCW with his hands. I think Nitro needs to kick off with the same visual you had almost, with the guys coming out with those Canadian flags on their shoulders. But instead of Bischoff bragging that they got Bret, Bischoff is starting to make the case that Bret should sign with the NWO and that he shouldn't be, at the time, with a third-rate wrestling company because they're still trying to play up that they're separate organizations, and that the best place for him to come is with the New World Order. And obviously at this point in time, one of the things we talked about was that would be the way to kick off the show. Let them know that Bret Hart is up for grabs, and this will build a lot of excitement, I think. Have Bischoff kind of keep planting the seeds that he's going to get Bret. He's going to get him, and he's going to get him to show up when you least expect it.
I do think that, though, it should be more than just Bischoff. I think you need to have the whole NWO bragging that they just signed the hottest, or that they are going to be the ones to sign the hottest free agent, and this is why you should join us.
Well, yeah,
we have Hogan, we have Nash, we have Hall. Sell it to Bret. Everybody.
Yep. And no, I think you will get that. You will get the guys having their things off to the side, and they'll be telling the Mean Genes, or they'll be talking to the camera and saying, like, this is why you need to be here, Bret Hart.
I think it also has to have like that that effect that when they try to sign DDP, they would follow him around with the T-shirts. Obviously, you're not following around Bret because he's not there yet, and you're not going to have him be there yet. But come out with the T-shirts and say, Bret, we're keeping it warm for you. We got it ready for you. Whatever you need to do.
Exactly. And on the flip side, how you get WCW involved, I think you got to maybe go a little bit bigger. J.J. Dillon was the guy in charge at the time. I would have J.J. make a play for Bret. I would even have maybe the idea of getting Ted Turner to show up on TV to sell it.
We talked about that off the air, and I think that is a phenomenal idea. But I think in this case, J.J. Dillon is not going to get the job done. You need a Ted Turner. You need Ted Turner to make his first and only WCW run in this, where he needs to come out and state that he's sick of the NWO. He wants their shining knight, their white knight, Bret Hart, to come to WCW and be their savior. He needs to come out and kind of get into a little storyline, a little program with Eric Bischoff as a balance of power type thing, where they're fighting over not only Bret Hart, but WCW.
Yeah. And, I would have the guys like the DDPs, the Lex Lugers, make their case, the Giant, make their case as to why Bret should come over to WCW. Really kind of hype this up that it's a big deal, how important it is that he gets on their side in this war.
Just picture this for a minute. You kick off Nitro after the Montreal thing with the rumors of Bret Hart, okay, and the program between Sting and Hogan escalating to what's going to be the next huge feud, a match 18 months in the making.
Yeah,
that's a raw killer right there. That Nitro, star-studded. I mean, and as a wrestling fan at that time, does Bret Hart show up at Nitro that night? You could tease it. You could definitely tease it. You should have Bischoff teasing it. Be honest with you. I mean, we saw him teasing stuff with the fake Sting that they had for a while.
Yeah, I would think maybe every so often, they can kind of tease the idea that the rumor is Bret's coming in tonight to sign a contract, and he doesn't.
What if you even played it another way, where you had Bischoff not even mention Bret Hart, just mention NWO is going to make a huge signing. Just not even mention a name. We're going to make a huge signing. Now you could really go. You could go either way with that. I mean, you could have a couple teases with that. You could have our huge signing is here, and out comes Doink the Clown in an NWO T-shirt. You know what I mean? Or something stupid. Or you could just kind of tease it a little bit as well.
You could try that. I mean, I really want the focus to be on Bret.
Right.
Bret has to be on their breath like Hogan was on their breath when he signed with WCW.
Right.
Every other thought's got to be about, the thoughts going through the announcer's mind should be Hogan, and then the next thing they're saying is, where's Bret Hart going to play into this? And nobody knows where Bret's going to play into this until Bret finally, Eric Bischoff, the week before Starrcade, says he wants a front row ticket to watch him and the NWO kill off WCW once and for all. He's offering him a ticket to Starrcade in the front row. Bret does show up to Starrcade, but he's only a spectator.
And he is not a referee in Bischoff Zbyszko.
No.
Not happening.
So all he's there is he is watching as a neutral party because he wants to see who's going to win the big match, and he wants to see, what's going to happen with the landscape of wrestling before he makes a decision. And right before the Hogan-Sting match, I have Mean Gene go up to Bret Hart and say, I need to ask you a question, man. I need to know, where are you going to be? Where are you signing? Have you made your decision yet? And Bret says, I'm announcing my decision tomorrow night on Nitro. I'm here to watch the match. This is about Hogan and Sting. This isn't about me tonight. I'm just here as a fan.
So now what you just did is that's two Nitros now that just demolished WWE. I mean, they're not getting anybody. They're not getting anybody to watch those shows because now the first one you have, like I said, Hogan and Sting, and you have the idea, is Bret Hart going to show up? Now you have Bret Hart's decision, and then the outcome of Hogan and Sting. So Nitro killed Raw 2 weeks right there.
As for Hogan and Sting, I mean, I have the ref trying to do some things, but like nothing ever comes to fruition. And in the end, Sting does beat Hogan clean because that's
Sting,
the way
okay,
it should have ended.
right.
It absolutely needed to end that way. The next night, I have Bret come on. I have at the top of the show Hogan announce that he wants Sting in a rematch. He's got a contract saying that he's entitled to a rematch. He wants that rematch tonight.
Main event.
Main event for Nitro, just like it played out in real life. I'd have Bret come out at the top of the 9 o'clock hour because Nitro would start at 8 and Raw would start at 9. And nothing's going to kill Raw's momentum no matter what hot of a segment that they have. If Bret Hart's coming out to say, is he his first appearance on Nitro, is he going to be a heel with the NWO or is he going to be a face and fight against him?
And you have your WWE marks. Is he going to mention Raw? Is he going to mention Montreal? What's he going to say? What does he have to say?
This is Bret Hart with an open mic on Turner Television. He can say whatever he wants to say. And he gets out there and he's talking about how much of a decision he's had to make about what's going on. And you know, he sees the pros of both sides, he sees the cons of both sides, but he's made a decision. The NWO music plays and Bischoff walks out. He's got Scott Hall at his side and to kind of back him up over there. And Bischoff's pretty confident Bret's signing the contract with him. And he's going on and on about how great it's going to be to have him be alongside Hall and Nash and stand behind Hogan and watch all the great things he can do. And then Bret takes the mic and he says that he stood behind Hogan for years in the WWF. And he didn't come here to stand behind him. He came here to take him out. And he said, and another thing is he ain't standing behind Hall and Nash because he spent the last 4 years of his life fighting their best friend, and he can't stand those guys either. And then you get Bret and Scott Hall to kind of have a little brawl to kind of set up the fact that Bret means business to get him kind of a feel out of what he might look like in the ring in WCW. Crowd's popping pretty big. You know, he's made his choice. Everybody's loving it. Bischoff and Hall kind of run off with their with their tails between their legs. Everybody's pretty pumped up right now. And then for the Hogan Sting main event, I kind of have.
Now, the only thing that I think you're missing there, because I think you're on point, I think you have to have Ted Turner on that show. And I think you need to have Ted Turner and Bischoff start that segment, fighting over in the ring verbally who is Bret gonna sign with.
Okay.
You get the big feel because Ted Turner, you haven't seen him on WCW since they signed Hogan,
right?
And it just makes it feel larger than life. You know, kind of like how it is now when you have Vince on TV trying to put over guys. I think that's how the Ted Turner thing would have came off. You have him and Bischoff in the ring arguing. You could have Hall and Nash there and Hogan or whoever you want from the NWOB team to be in that ring.
Yeah.
But I think, in addition, before you have Bret come out to make his decision, those guys need, even if it's at the top of the show, you know, if you have these guys at the top, the start of the show coming out here arguing about it, and then you have Bret come out at the 9 o'clock hour. Either way, Ted Turner needs to be on that show.
Yes. No, I can appreciate that. So you have Turner and Bischoff maybe already in the ring? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, before Bret's music hits. And you know what? Call me crazy. I think WCW needs, and I'm attention to detail here. WCW needs to pay the fine and have Bret come out to Bret's music for one night. Pay the fine, take the repercussions, because the minute that song hits in WCW, gone. Unbelievable. The ovation that he would get, pay the fine.
We'll see how that plays out. Maybe they could just write a better theme for him. But but then we look at the Hogan Sting rematch. This is where all the schmozzy run-ins and things happen like that. And I think what you have to remember is that Scott Hall won World War III Battle Royal, and he was entitled to a match at Super Brawl for the World Championship against Hogan or Sting. So I would have there start to be a little bit of tension building up in this match with the NWO running in. And, Nash is really a big advocate for Hall to get his shot. And match with this, so he wants the rematch with Sting at Super Brawl. And, you're building up also to Sold Out. And Sold Out's the January pay-per-view, but the tension's already starting to lay. You kind of get this in the real storyline. You get Hogan and Savage getting some tension, but I think you need tension all over the place.
Well, yeah,
I would have things be.
We're building to it. I mean, it's still a year away, but essentially, this is going to be the end of the NWO. So yes, you need a ton of tension, a ton.
Yeah. And, I would have, Bret's already declared he's a WCW guy. When Scott Hall comes out, to kind of sweeten the deal in Bischoff's eyes as to why he should sign, it backfires. I think this leads to a match where Bret and Scott Hall fight it Sold Out. And I think Scott Hall's a good guy to put in Bret's first match because Scott Hall is a good worker. He's a guy Bret's worked with before. They've had good matches. I know Bret doesn't always get along with the clique, but, he's professional. And Hall and Nash, definitely they have less tension that they could kind of build up for a storyline purpose than they would have otherwise. And I'd have that actually headline the show.
Makes sense. You're building Bret to be your top guy. Headline it.
And match end with the NWO trying to run out and cost Bret the match. I'd have Sting making a to try to help Bret. He'd fight off like a lot of the guys like the Nash and Savages. And Hogan is going to nail Bret Hart with, something. I don't know if he's got a chair or whatever he's got. And Bret moves and he hits Hall. And Hogan now is looking at Bret Hart in the eye, and he's scared out of his mind because he realizes this guy wants to kick his ass, and he runs for it. And Bret locks Scott Hall in the sharpshooter, and Hall passes.
I guess we lost him again. Technical difficulties again. The call just dropped. Wow, great way to start the show. This is your pitch break, people. Sorry about that. I'm trying to rectify the situation, so I'm sorry for that. But yeah, essentially, what you have here is you have dissension starting within the NWO. Because what you want to do is you want to make Bret Hart be the guy that takes out the NWO. So he reiterated what he was saying, and I think he's coming back. Is that are you back? Guess not. Technology nowadays, gotta love it. Let's see. Yeah, not back, but yeah, you got to start building this dissension in the NWO. And Hogan hits Hall with the chair accidentally. I don't know where else he was going to go with that, but pretty much I would pretty much be on the same route. Are we
Yes,
back? Oh, we're back. Look at that.
can't keep having all these technical issues.
I know. We gotta rectify this for the next podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, I gotta work on that a little bit.
We'll edit it out when we post it.
Yeah,
Everybody watching live is kind of screwed, but
yeah, and probably who's going to be watching later on YouTube because I think this goes right to the YouTube account. So sorry, people, it's the first one, but
anyway, so we wrapped up Sold Out.
yep,
Bret Hart winning his first match with Scott Hall after some shenanigans with Hulk Hogan in the NWO.
right,
We've got a build up now to Sting versus Scott Hall at Super Brawl, which is infuriating to Hogan because Hogan, in his opinion, should be the only person getting a title match in the NWO. And this starts to cause a lot of tension within the New World Order because now that Hogan's lost the belt, there are plenty of other guys that are legitimate contenders to the championship.
right,
And we start to see those divides. We see Nash side with Hall. We see Savage kind of playing a lone wolf type of role. We see Bischoff side with Hogan. We see maybe a guy like Kurt Hennig siding with Hogan. And then Kurt Hennig sides with Hogan because that's going to set us up for Bret's next opponent. A guy that Bret Hart has a lot of history with in my
great matches,
Mr. Perfect himself, the guy he won his first singles championship off of.
great matches that these two could put on.
And Hennig is still very credible at this time. You know, like I said, he second biggest match of Starrcade. I refuse to count Bischoff and Zbyszko as the second biggest match of the show.
You know how I feel
Hennig,
about that match.
Guy who took out the Four Horsemen. They broke up from that whole incident. It's at Fall Brawl at War Games. Kurt Hennig says, "I know how to beat Bret Hart. I've beaten Bret Hart. Let me get a shot at him." Hogan says, "By all means, he's yours. Like, take him out." You know, you get a good build up there. It's a great technical matchup. It goes like 25 minutes. They give him the time that they need. But again, Bret puts down another member of the NWO. He puts down Kurt Hennig, and like Hogan's getting frustrated because now he can't even take out.
And we lost him again. All right, let's see what we can do. Let's see. Trying to get him back. I'll do this. Where are we here? I guess he's not coming out. Technical difficulties all around, people. Let's see. All right. So yeah, reiterate what he was saying. He would have Bret and Kurt Hennig work up a feud. Go out like that. Let's see. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get him back in over here. Let's see what's going on. He's not coming back. Yeah, I really like some of the ideas that he's going with. Definitely have, a Kurt Hennig and Bret Hart match. Definitely in the mix of setting up Hogan and and Hart is definitely a main event caliber match. Those two can work. We've seen them in the WWE, WWF together. Put on phenomenal shows, and it definitely wouldn't be lost. Um, but yeah, so again, we are. Oh, wait. Could he be coming back? Let us see. I think we're trying to connect right here. Sorry, guys, for the technical difficulties. I don't want to, kind of get off track here or anything. I'd like Tim to finish giving you his opinion. Oh, hey, he's back again.
We're back.
We're back. All right.
So what have I missed?
Nothing. I was trying to reconnect you. I
Okay.
was pretty much agreeing with the way that you wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
So yeah, no, what I would do here.
Did we lose you again? You there? Hello? Hello? You there? You there? You gotta turn your volume on. I see you, but I can't hear you. Not working. Well, and there he goes again. You there? Sorry, guys. This is our first time using Google Hangouts, and hey, it might be our last because this is ridiculous right now. Pappas, you there? Are you muted, man? I can't hear you. I'm having difficulties hearing you, man. Can't hear you, man. We are trying to fix whatever issues that we are having right now. We are trying to rectify this. Hey. Hi. Yeah, we could do that. All right. All right. I'll call you right back. All right. Bye. All right, guys, so that was him. Right now we are having technical difficulties. So what we are going to do is we're going to end it right here, and we're going to give you a part 2, to be continued, tomorrow. We will finish the Bret Hart year in review. We are on 2 hours right now, so it is way over where we want to be. I hope you guys enjoyed the first show, minus the few minor bumps in the road, and hopefully you guys will tune in tomorrow and we could do our part 2. And be on the lookout for Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. Peace, everybody.